Let's talk gambling addiction. Hey, everybody. My name's Rob, and I'm in recovery from a gambling addiction. 743 days ago, I made my last bet, and now I'm here to talk about what I went through, what I've gone through in recovering from that addiction, and how I can help you or a loved one avoid going down that same path that I did. My hope here is that we talk, we ask questions, answer questions, and somehow something that I say helps you to help yourself or a loved one. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I'm just here to share my experience. There's a lot of value in that. And I hope that people want to be here. So if you're here right now and you're excited or you're not excited or whatever, leave a like on the video so that we can get some more people in here asking those questions. We got one comment in the chat. Shout out Shreya for leaving that first comment before anyone else even popped into the stream. So hope everyone's doing well. And regardless of if you're watching this live or on the replay, feel free to drop some comments in the chat, and I will do my best to answer the questions that you might have about gambling addiction. So while we wait for people to show up, let's talk. So I was basically a sports bettor. That's how I began. It was daily fantasy sports, then it was regular sports betting, and by the end of it, it progressed to be slot machines and table games. And I could actually spin a slot machine in my pocket, just listening to the sound coming in through my AirPods, and I would know how much I had won or lost just based on the sound. That's where we were at. What's up, Constantinos? What's up, J-Boy? How we doing, guys? Welcome back to the chat. And we have our first point of discussion. Time and time again, all again, day one is always worse. Mental health, depressing, and financially one day at a time, by month, year by year, it's a process. Absolutely. That first day is going to be the hardest because if you're addicted to gambling, and this might not make sense to people that aren't struggling with it, it becomes our survival mechanism. And something in our brain tells us, hey, we have to keep betting to survive, to feel okay, to feel pleasure in life. That's a sickness. And it's very, very difficult to leave it behind because no matter what we're trying in the beginning, it's not going to feel as good. It's not going to be as stimulating, as exciting, but it's not supposed to be. And that's okay. We have to be patient. We have to give ourselves the time to think about what we're doing, to feel pleasure in the little things again. And it will happen. Our brains actually heal themselves. It's a process called neuroplasticity. But until that happens, we got to be patient. And it's not going to feel as great as it sometimes would have felt when we were gambling. That's just the reality, and we have to accept that. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. Really, the only thing I don't talk about is the amount of money that I lost. And there's a really specific reason for that. People like to ask that of gambling addicts, problem gamblers all the time, because it's that clickbait number, right? Like, oh man, I got to find out, how did he lose that much? How did he make that mistake? But what happens is it opens this really strange comparison. And people will say, oh, I didn't lose as much money as he did. So I'm not as bad as he is. I'm not a gambling addict. He's a gambling addict. I can keep going. And so by sharing numbers, the only thing that we do is we allow people to compare and tell themselves that it's not as big of a problem if they haven't lost that much money. Truth is, $100 to someone might be $1,000 to someone else. And so I like to say I went into debt 6 times over 6 years to the point I had to work a second job to explain how bad my gambling had gotten. How can I stop gambling? J-Boy, great question. So I have a lot of videos here on the channel that specifically talk about that. And by channel, I'm referring to the YouTube, of course. If you're watching on Facebook, feel free to come over to YouTube or, check it out at a later time. But realistically, it boils down to 4 things. In every video, I talk about the same 4 things because it's what worked for me, right? Finding alternative things to do with your time, limiting your access to money that will tempt you, limiting your access to gambling by doing self-exclusions, and going to support group meetings. Now, I went through that pretty quickly, but realistically, what you're doing is you're creating the time and space when you feel a gambling urge to think about it and to make it more difficult to happen. Because when you take that time, that's what recovery is all about. It's about separating yourself from impulsively hitting bet to thinking, do I want to do this? Is it going to help me or is it going to hurt me? That is what recovery is to me. It's that mental space. So check out one of those videos to find out a little bit more about it. Sean, welcome to the chat. I just finished editing our video about 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to be posting that one tomorrow. If you're watching live, there's going to be a podcast coming out tomorrow where Sean shares his story of gambling addiction and recovery. Really powerful one. I had a really good time with this one. So if you're around, I hope you check it out. Let's see. Alex, congratulations on 512 days without gambling. What made you want to stop? Let us know in the chat. What do I think is the worst form of gambling? This is a trick question. So it depends on who you are. Everyone has a preference. Every gambler has a preference as to what brings them the most excitement. And it might come down to like whatever they tried first, right? Maybe the first thing they tried is the one that has all those good memories and you want to go back to it. So for me, I always found sports betting to be the thing that hooked me in the most. But realistically, it can be whatever you enjoy spending your time gambling on. And that's the danger of it. The good thing is it's pretty much the same path to recovery, regardless of any of the types of gambling that you were doing. So that's a positive, but I don't think one is more addictive than another by preference. By nature, slot machines are designed specifically with psychological tricks to keep you playing, but you can find that in any type of gambling. Interesting here. So sports better here. Gambling didn't cost you financially, but it cost you 4 to 5 years. Became a daily routine to place bets. Never touched casino or slots. This goes and kind of speaks to the message of gambling not being a financial problem. You start to experience financial problems when you get to that compulsiveness and you are at a point where you're gambling all the money you can afford, but it can absolutely impact your life in other ways than just the money. You're losing time. You're losing trust with others. Life is passing you by while you're telling yourself you're chasing something or escaping something. And then you look up one day and you've wasted 4 or 5 years. I went through the same thing, but I also had this idea that I'd be a professional gambler, which ended up costing me big time financially as well. But it can be all of it. As a gambling addict, you can never be able to gamble responsibly ever. And I think rather than thinking, oh man, I wish I could gamble responsibly, ask yourself, like, if you're a gambling addict, why would you want to gamble responsibly? Like, what are the things that you're getting from gambling if you're addicted to it, right? You're getting an intense hit of dopamine, an intense thrill. You're doing risk taking. You're feeling like you're the man, you're on top of the world, or you're the woman, you're on top of the world. If you gamble responsibly and you take a couple dollars to the casino and win or lose, you leave, what are you going to get out of that as a gambling addict? Right? Like people will say, "Oh, it's entertainment." Is it entertainment for you if for the last 40 years or 40 years being a stretch, right? For the last X number of years, you've been gambling this intense amount, this intense thrill? No. If you could have done that, you would have been doing it from the start. Mm. So, Alex, what made you want to stop gambling was debt, knowing that you were going to retire. And thank you. And me. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. When people give me compliments like that, what I like to say is if I've done my job correctly, it's been that I've delivered a message that you need to implement some changes possibly in your own life. And if you've done that, you should be incredibly proud of yourself. All I did was serve as the random guy on the internet that reinforced that idea. So, congratulations to you. But yes, debt can definitely be a motivating factor to quitting gambling. It's usually the motivating factor of I've dug myself such a hole. What do I do? Because I've kept trying to solve it by gambling more and it keeps causing problems. And I get that. So that can be a very strong motivator, but not the only motivator. But congratulations on your time clean, my friend. Guys, if you're here right now in the chat, I need you to do me one favor. I need you to leave a like on this video. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, would love to welcome you in with a subscription. But by all means, the number one thing you can do to support right now is hit that like button because it'll push this stream out to more people and we'll get some more questions flowing through, which makes everything better. Let's see. How can I control my trigger? My trigger is whenever I receive my bills and loan invoices. So, Jamie, in this case, there's kind of two paths to controlling it, and one is going to sound more tempting than the other. I would go with the least tempting one, but here are the two things that come to mind. One is automating your finances. So there's certain programs that you can use where it'll automatically move money to different accounts as soon as you get paid. So you don't see it, you don't transfer anything. It's just all bill automation. So that's auto pay, that's auto investing, like these kinds of things. The second thing is giving a family member or loved one access to your finances and you not taking control of it at all for the time being. That's what I did. When I first quit, I had my family take care of my bank account. I carried cash, spent that cash on whatever I wanted, but that's all I had. I only had that cash. I did most of my gambling online. So I think involving someone else is the key in early recovery, as untempting and as unflattering as it probably feels. Let's get on Do Not Disturb here. We're seeing some updates for the Mac. We'll take care of that at a later date. Why is this illness getting worse time to time and you want more? Well, why does it get worse is because your baseline level of how much thrill you get from gambling changes as you get used to it. It's called tolerance. So you have to keep gambling more and more, taking riskier plays, doing more gambling, gambling more money in order to feel that thrill that you used to feel in the beginning from something much less severe. It's just like with alcohol, right? When you first had a drink, it might make you drunk. But 10 years later, that one drink might not make you drunk anymore. You might need three. And it's the same with gambling. But for us, we go through that ramping up period, that tolerance building so quickly that it just deteriorates so rapidly for us. How do you continue to stop long term? I've stopped a month here and there and it starts all over again. So when it starts all over again, I would ask you why? What is sending you back to gambling? So I think the key to long term sobriety from gambling is to understand your own triggers and have systems in place to deal with them when they arise. When I went back to gambling, it was after 8 months clean. And it was because I was bored. I had too much money on my hands and I was feeling meaningless. I didn't have anything to do with my time that I felt good about. Knowing all of that, after I had my relapse on November the 12th of 2022, I was like, oh shit, I need something to do with my time. I cannot have access to this bank account or I will spend it. And I need to find something that I care about to do. That wasn't like I snapped my fingers and figured all of that out immediately, but I knew those things had to happen for me to sustain long term sobriety. So figure out what sent you back to gambling, and that in itself will contain the answer of what you need to do to stay clean long term. Blake, thank you for the love on the content. I believe the next couple of years, gambling will affect millions. I think it is currently affecting millions and will continue to grow, unfortunately, because of the mass normalization of gambling. There was some comment on one of my posts earlier today that said, like, I haven't seen any data to show that gambling's gotten worse since 1999. And when I read that, I was like, well, if you haven't seen the data, there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is that the casinos are the ones that are funding the studies to check on how much damage that they're doing. Big problem is that they're not going to want to be honest if they are having to change the way that their business functions as a result of this study. So that's one, but that's tinfoil hat type conspiracy, right? I think what we're seeing is a lag time right now on research studies compared to the increased advertising. Right now, we are seeing more gambling advertising than ever before. It is everywhere you look. It's pervasive, it's individualized, so it's targeted at you. And when that is the case, we're going to see people feeling even more intensely that they need to gamble. And so when we see research studies, I think what we're going to see is this giant jump once you see gambling advertising jumping, and it's going to be increasing in proportion to the gambling ad spend. That's what we're going to see. Gambling advertising is destroying our planet, not gambling. So let's see. Once again, guys, my name is Rob. I'm in recovery from a gambling addiction. Before I hit the next question, I just want you to do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. If you are here on YouTube, I'm trying to grow this account to try to help people avoid making the same mistakes with their life that I made with mine. And I'd love to have you join this community. Now, let's see. It is very hard to walk away from gambling, especially from slots. The worst thing that has ever happened to me is big hits, and it's a roller coaster as time goes by. It gets scarier. I understand this completely, my friend. And what people don't seem to get that aren't problem gamblers is that a big win is the worst thing that can happen to you as a problem gambler because it builds this, it's like a trauma almost in your mind. It's a very intense event of, oh, no matter what happens, I can win, right? So it can get better. And we begin to make all of our problems in our head be financially based, right? Sure, we're ignoring our friends and family. Sure, we just lost our job. Sure, we just can't sleep at night. But once we have a big win, we'll buy the best pillows and the best bed. We'll take our family on a vacation, and I won't need to work a job anyway, right? So it's fine. I'll just retire from my gambling money. It's deeper than financial problems, but we convince ourselves that that is the root cause rather than the gambling. So the very thing that we seek to be the solution to these problems we made up in our head is what is causing those problems to continue. That's what makes gambling particularly difficult to leave behind. Did I work through the 12 steps? And if so, which steps stuck out to me the most? What anchored my recovery? So, I did work the 12 steps. I have been in support group meetings since February 8th of 2022. I will say that what really anchored my recovery, though, was creating content regarding this. So I guess it would be comparable to step 12, which is to continue to help the problem gambler who's still struggling. I would say that the 12 steps played much less of a role in my life than conversations with people at the meetings. In fairness, I think there's a bit of a separation. This is my opinion. Again, this doesn't stand for any organization. This is my opinion that groups like AA take the steps a lot more seriously than groups like GA. And that's for one reason or another. I think you can recover while working through the steps, but with the anchor point being human connection rather than one particular step. So I hope that answered that question. Mm. How long till the dopamine levels adjust? I'm 7 days clean. I don't feel urges, but I have too much free time. So yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that you won't feel urges in the beginning because you're probably coming off some kind of negative traumatic event where you lost a bunch of money, which is what happened to me. You don't really feel that urge other than maybe the thought of like, oh man, I wish I could win it back. That might be it. But realistically, 7 days is not a lot of time. You're probably going to start to feel those urges coming through in a couple more weeks as that memory begins to fade. It took me probably about 3, 4 months before I started to feel any kind of pleasure again in my life, which is sad, but true. I think you just need to be patient and not worry about how long it's gonna take. Just keep doing your thing every day, and if you feel like you have too much free time, start plugging things in. Go to the gym, hot yoga, reading, writing, journaling, meditating, out with friends, watch a movie. I don't know. Just come up with anything. Start plugging in things to fill your time with, and think about what would you like to be doing activity wise this time next year. And if you can think of something, do that activity, even if it doesn't feel good at first, because it will gradually get better. Let's see. I think it's sad that they pump gambling companies during games and commercials. I think it entices a big crowd. You can't watch a game without seeing it. Absolutely. And I think we're not far away from if you're not gambling on the game, there's no point in you watching the game. I think that's the natural progression of how gambling is kind of inserting itself in sports betting. I don't think we're long from that at all. And that's the sad reality of that. Do you feel like you get a dopamine fix posting content, likes, comments, and growing numbers on your YouTube and TikTok? So somehow switch to another addiction, even if you don't lose money, of course. Definitely in the beginning, 100%. Won't even try to fight it. I just compulsively check the analytics. I do it much less than I used to, but I was getting a real thrill from seeing progress made because for so long I felt like I wasn't making any progress that I became like almost addicted to seeing myself making progress. But that's led to another problem, which is now I, no matter what I'm able to accomplish, don't feel like I'm making enough progress because maybe it's a dopamine addiction still. Maybe it's I got bigger hits from seeing the numbers go up in the beginning than I do now. I become desensitized to it. For whatever reason, I very much struggle to feel proud of progress. That's something that I felt when I was sports betting too. If I had a win, it was like, yeah, I'm supposed to win. That's expected. But when I had a loss, it would stick with me for days. And it's kind of the same thing here. If I post a good video, yeah, I'm supposed to post a good video. That's my job. But if I post a bad video, I'm feeling it for a couple days. So it's definitely kind of shifted into that. And do I know the solution for it? At this point, I don't. But as you said, not losing money, it gives me a little bit more leeway to figure this thing out. The house is not quite on fire, though there's still work to be done. Mm, why did you gamble on the things you mathematically can't really beat? Well, Anders, you're saying that as if there's things you can mathematically beat, which I'm sure you're going to follow up with in a little bit. But realistically, it didn't matter. When you're a problem gambler, you don't really care about the odds. You think that you are the exception to the odds, that you will figure out a system to help you navigate it and beat it, which is likely what you're going to follow up with. Mm. Why is it now why is it no matter how much I lose, every win feels the same? Anxiety, depression, I still play even when I don't feel like it. I feel like I'm a train wreck. Well, David, if you're a train wreck, man, then I'm a train wreck too, because that's exactly how I was feeling. So you're not alone in that. Realistically, why do you feel the same after you win? Because it's become the normal. It's what your brain thinks is supposed to happen when you gamble. You get stuck with the negative emotions when reality catches up to you. And why do you keep doing it? Because it produces dopamine in your brain. It makes you feel good. It gives you a thrill. And unfortunately, it takes time for that to fix itself. That's why there's realistically only one cure for this problem. And you're never fully cured, but it's to pursue a world where you're not gambling until you get to the point where you don't want that anymore. You're at the point now where you're saying you don't want to go back to it, but you keep going back because it's become a compulsion. It's become a habit that's so deeply ingrained that your brain thinks it's what you need to do to survive. I went through it. Millions of other people are dealing with it as well. And I hope that you become a member of this community and stick around. I hope that something in my story can help you in yours. Mm. Did you tell all of your friends and family members about your gambling problem or only select few? In the beginning, Chris, it was like I didn't hide it particularly, but I didn't talk about it. Like if someone asked me if I wanted to gamble, I'd say, hey, like I got a gambling problem, like I won't do it. But I wouldn't just like randomly bring it up. Although I did do that once on a first date. for some reason. I don't know if I had like a beer and I was like buzzed or something. I was like, I'm a gambling addict, by the way. And she was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's maybe not the way to bring it up. But realistically, as soon as I started making this content, it wasn't much of a secret anymore. And I realized that it never even mattered. I had this idea in my head that if I was to hide it from others, that I could be seen as normal. But for some reason, that meant that this made me abnormal. This is one small aspect of my life that I needed to get on track to live the rest of it. And once I was open and honest with people, I realized that I was making it a much bigger deal in my head than it actually was. All I needed was openness, honesty, and I could move forward. So if you're struggling to tell someone that you love that you're struggling with a gambling problem, rip the band aid off because it makes the problem that much easier to deal with. Mm. Sean, if we're not gambling today, we are winning because we are not losing. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good mindset to keep in, something that can help me because we we think like if we're not making progress that we're going backwards. But we were really going backwards when we were gambling because we were losing money and having to dig ourselves out of that hole. So it's like a mindset shift, I think, for me. But realistically, end of the day, you're not gambling, you're not dragging yourself back. It's a win. How did patience, humility, and surrender to a higher power help you in your recovery? My therapist says the withdrawal symptoms may last for up to a year, so I've been struggling with that truth a lot. How did patience, I'll start with patience and humility. Really still struggle with both of those, in fairness, but I'm realizing that for a really long time, I wanted things to happen right away, and that caused more problems than solutions. So just knowing that as the truth made me realize patience is the way to go, even if I don't enjoy it. Humility, still struggle with it because the idea that we can't gamble shouldn't mean that like we can't be really good at things, and I still struggle with that. I think humility as it relates to gambling is just recognizing we're not the exception to the rule as it pertains to the odds of winning. That's what's important in recovery, in my opinion. And surrender to a higher power, I really didn't. And that's one of the differentiating points. That's why a lot of people say they don't want to go to GA meetings, is because they don't believe in a higher power. I do, but I don't really feel like anyone's here holding my hand, guiding me. And that could just be a lack of spirituality on my part. So when I think of higher power, what I think is I need to stop trying to do everything myself. That's kind of where I get to it. Do I need to believe that there is an eternal being holding my hand, walking me through recovery? I don't think I do. But for a really long time, I tried to handle every problem that came my way myself. And I just don't think that I have to do that anymore. So whether that means that your higher power is simply a community that you're in, a couple friends that you have, or literally your therapist, just having someone else to bounce ideas off of feels like a higher power to me. Withdrawal symptoms lasting for up to a year. I don't know where that came from. But then again, I'm not a therapist, so be patient. Not quite sure what else to say on that. I've never heard that before though. Hey Shrey, how's it going? Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's see. When I have a really cruddy day, I always tell myself nothing great happened today, but I didn't gamble. Absolutely, Alex. I think that's an important factor and something that people probably can't understand, right? Unless they have a gambling problem. It's like, dude, congrats, you didn't gamble today. Neither did I, right? But for those of us that have gone through it, we're so used to taking so many steps back that as long as we're not moving backwards, it is a short term win. A lot of my family members can't forgive me for my addiction and move on. Every time they bring it up, it sets me back in my recovery. What can I do in the situation without keeping away from all of them? Darren, how long have you been in recovery? That is my question. My guess is that this has all happened within the last 2 months. And if that's the case, what you need to do is accept that they might not forgive you right now because they might be really pissed off. You might have done some things to them. I know I did to my friends and family that sucked. Um, it really comes down to being patient. And if it's still setting you off in your recovery, that's more of a reflection of how you're thinking about it than how they are. If they are saying things that are bothering you, there's likely some truth in what they're saying. So that begins to beg the question of how can I work on this aspect of my character in order to move forward and be proud of who I am? And that's something that I struggle with. Every time that I was sitting with my family and we'd see like a FanDuel commercial come on TV, they'd be like, "Ooh, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off." And it's embarrassing. It feels annoying, right? Realistically, that's just them not quite, I mean, they're not trained medical professionals, right? Like they're not going to be able to walk on eggshells forever without saying something that might bother me. But is that them just doing their best? Yes. And is that me getting offended at that? Yes. Why am I getting offended at that? Because I'm embarrassed of what I did at that point, right? So is it them or is it you? And it's a really hard question to ask. David, if you're looking for resources to get help, check the description of this YouTube video for a link to my website where I've made a page filled with resources no matter where you are on earth. It's called odatrecovery.com/resources. Do you own stocks? I have idle cash. Any recommendations on what to do with it? I can't gamble or do options trading. I can't do options trading anymore either because I was gambling with it. I opened retirement investment accounts, which God knows 2 years ago, if you asked me if I would have that, I'd say, hell no, that's so stupid and boring. And it is really boring. But yes, I own mutual funds in a retirement account, which sounds like I'm 75 years old, I guess. And it doesn't give me any excitement, but I think that's the point. Um, so yes, I own stocks, but what would I recommend? I can't recommend anything. Why would you take advice from me? I spent years, I spent 6 years gambling all my money. I wouldn't ask me for financial advice by any means, but right now I am getting involved in retirement investing, which is very stale, but hopefully worth it over the long run. VMA, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate kind words when they come in because I get a lot of troll comments on a lot of my posts. So it keeps me motivated to know that it's not falling on deaf ears. Um, The idea of the thrill, it's what you'll hear if you go to any support group meeting. It's not that I've written a book on it, right? I'm just repeating what I've internalized at these meetings is that we want this thrill as problem gamblers, but it gradually gets better. I promise you that. How did I stop? I've made a couple videos here on my YouTube account that talk about how I stop. And the four things that I did were finding alternatives for my time, limiting my access to money that would tempt me, limiting my access to gambling by doing self exclusions, and going to support group meetings. I have lots of videos that dive into the details of those things. So I hope that it's helpful. Mm. How was it posting your first video online about this? You guys can still see it. It's like if you go to YouTube and you sort by oldest, you will see that video. It was awkward to record. It was awkward to post. It was awkward to see no one watching it after I posted it. But it was that necessary first step, and it felt a lot like sharing at a group meeting. I had a microphone. I was holding it like this, and I was talking, and I was like, "Gambling addiction is an addiction because like I had no skill making a video at all." And the funniest part was that microphone wasn't even attached to anything. I was just recording and holding it because I thought that having the microphone would make me look like an authority figure or like people would listen to me if I had a microphone, right? So, so how was it? It was kind of a comedy show if you were watching me do it, but it was cathartic in a way of like, man, if I can do this, like even if no one watches it, I can get better at it. It might really help my own recovery, and it did. Mm. So once again, guys, thank you all for being here so far. We're going to keep it going, but I just wanted to say if I missed any of your comments, feel free to drop them again. I know a couple of you have responded as I've been answering questions. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for being willing to, talk to me, let me share my opinions on things and just have open ears and open hearts. I really appreciate that. Suggestion, let someone else invest your money if you're a gambler. Sean, likely a good idea. Personally, I would struggle with it. I would. And it's still maybe this sense of wanting control in a situation where maybe I don't even need the control. Um, Probably something that could backfire over the long run as well. But very much struggle with that layer of trust, which is weird because I trusted myself for a long time. And look where that got me, right? So I think it's a viable means of going about things. But make sure you're doing your research and not overpaying people to do that either. Thank you for opening the chat on gambling. It's so helpful and supportive, Elaine. Thank you for being here and for supporting the account once again. Realistically, all I wanted to do when I first started was help someone that was going through the same thing that I went through. Now it's reached a point where I want to make a real tangible dent in problem gambling. I want to help people that are struggling to find resources, and I want to help change the narrative on how we talk about gambling addiction and get these casinos to stop advertising as much as they do. I don't believe that every person that works at a casino is evil the way that I used to, but the method in which business is done is not sustainable. And it only takes advantage of those that are struggling the most. We need to see some changes made. And I think it stems from the advertising to begin. Do more interviews, that's just good, I appreciate that. I started doing the more formal, we call them podcasts over here. I don't really know if, like, that's what most podcasters would necessarily even call them, but this page used to be called Rob One Day at a Time. If you've been here for a while, you know that. And I was posting videos and I was noticing that people wanted stories. People wanted to hear what other people had gone through, what they did, and then what they did to get better. And then I realized, like, if I'm gonna be interviewing people, if I'm gonna be talking to people, I can't call this page Rob. Like, it's not about me anymore. And that's been the major shift, I think. It started off about me, about what I went through, about my own recovery journey. And now I'm doing well. I wanna talk about what other people are doing just because what worked for me might not work for you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I shifted the name to ODAAT Recovery because it's more than just me. And I'm glad that you're all here because it's about you. Even if you're not in recovery, you know someone that is. It's a silent addiction, so you might not know who's struggling, but absolutely. I'm gonna keep doing them. I'm gonna try to get to 100 interviews in the next year. I mean, we're gonna do 2 weeks, so it would take what, 51 weeks, 50 weeks. So we're at 10 right now in the podcast playlist as of today, 11 coming out tomorrow with Sean's interview. So let's get that up to 100. Maybe there's something within those 100 interviews that helps someone. One thing is trolling your channel saying you're one bet away from big win, but people actually posting what to bet and referring to their channel to make those bets makes me angry. That's the only time I tend to block people, honestly. I get a lot of troll comments. I really just draw the line at when people try to monetize it. Because at the end of the day, it's the internet. People are going to make fun of you. It is what it is. But when they're trying to scam people, that's when I step in and I block them. I mute them. It's really the only time I actually ever do it. So if people get mad that I blocked or muted them, it's because they were selling something. So it is what it is. What's my view on social media fueling the gambling addiction? Well, besides the advertising, which is just, the more you see of it, the more likely you are to believe that it's true. What we see a lot is influencer marketing when it comes to gambling. So it's finding celebrities to then pay money to stream, and then they get paid a portion of your losses if you sign up with their code forever. And so what we see is these streamers feeling, not even feeling, just having a direct incentive to lie. So they'll say, you're going to make money if you gamble. Then their audience goes and signs up and they lose, and the streamer makes money and they say, oh, just try again. So they go and they gamble more. And the streams, they're always winning. So they're saying, look, this is what's going to happen if you keep going. But then in reality, people are losing and the streamer is just getting richer every single day. So that's a major problem. And there's no regulation on it at all. So we're seeing people just constantly selling the lie that gambling is a way to make money. You see it with people who sell sports picks as well, and it's very, very dangerous. So social media is reinforcing the false belief that you will make money if you gamble. And if you know anything about social media, the way that it works is if you engage with a piece of content that you liked, that you watched the whole video of, the algorithm will then send you related pieces of content because their goal is to just keep you on the app for longer. So if you're someone who wants to win money gambling and you interact with, say, an Aiden Ross clip where he wins $1 million on a blackjack hand, then the next one that you're gonna get is another Aiden Ross clip, then a Drake clip, then an Exposed clip, and a Rothstein clip. And all of a sudden, you're just seeing 10 people in a row winning money gambling. You're gonna be like, oh shit, well, I'm gonna win money if I gamble, right? So it's this echo chamber effect of just being kept on the app longer by a false reality. What you see on social media isn't always true, but it typically aligns with what you want to be true. And that's why it fuels these false beliefs. It's the same with politics, it's the same with anything, which is why we're seeing the world becoming so polarized. You believe one thing, it's reinforced by your socials, so you keep believing it. How do you contact me about getting interviewed? Email me at rob@odatrecovery.com. It's in the profile of the YouTube account if you need to see it. But I'd love to talk to you. Appreciate it. Hmm. For me, it was the same. It's only when people like yourself opening up, I did, and eventually self-excluded. Thank you so much. Elaine, thank you for being here. I'm really happy to hear that. Self-excluding is a big step, but I'm proud of you for doing it. Sports teams shouldn't be sponsored by gambling sites. Lots of kids getting involved, and here Argentina do this stuff. It's all coming together as a problem, right? When the sports are advertising it, sports have always been something that like parents bond with their kids at, right? It's entertainment. It's where you go on the weekend. It's what you watch on the weekend. It's what you watch on the weeknights with your family. So if every ad on that game is about how you can make money if you gamble on it, what's that kid going to do the second that they're able to gamble? Sometimes, before the age that they're supposed to be able to. Oh, but they're going to be like, everyone else is doing it. This is what I've wanted to do since I started seeing these ads. So it's planting those seeds super young. Is investing in stocks a form of gambling? Would that break my recovery process? So, Jamie, for clarity, only you can determine what breaks your recovery process. I don't believe in any kind of you did this, so that means you have to reset your last bet date. No, whatever you do that you feel is gambling is what gambling is to you. So, realistically, is stocks a form of gambling? It can be. The way that I was doing it, it was. I was buying short dated options. I was hoping that it would big swing in price. I'd double my money in a day and I'd sell, or the option would go to zero and I'd lose everything. Is buying and holding an asset for 10 years gambling? Probably not. No. So it's realistically up to you, but I say it comes down to timeline when it comes to buying stocks. David, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you being here and spreading love. It is a vicious cycle, but we can get out of it together. And I decided to live right near a main highway. So I always have ambulances driving by. For catching any of those sounds, sorry. It's everyone that's been on my podcast knows that I got to mute halfway through. We got to pause so that an ambulance could go by. Who's your mentor starting the YouTube channel, or did you teach yourself everything? Chris, I never had an official mentor. At this point, I do work with a guy who kind of advises on channel strategy, but up until the point of like 6,000, 7,000 subscribers, I didn't work with anyone else. There's really nothing much to learn outside of like the technical skills, right? When it comes to YouTube, and this is just a side tangent, I'll get through it quickly. When it comes to YouTube, title, thumbnail, and then video quality are the three things to focus on in basically that order. So I did a lot of work on titles. I hired out someone to make thumbnails, and then video content, you just get gradually better as you do it, and you begin to check your analytics and see what's working, what's not working. So I would say the majority of it was self-taught, but I have hired out some of the things that I'm not so good at, like graphic design. Let's see. A local group of friends made us addicted to gambling. It's like an infection that spreads. A lot of gambling starts within friend groups, and it starts as a social activity. The point at which it becomes an isolation activity is when it starts to become a problem, typically. Um, to blame others for it becoming a problem really isn't fair. It's a lot of different factors. But if you are trying to stop gambling and your friend group keeps pulling you back in and you've told them, then maybe those aren't your friends. But until we're honest with people, it's just become the new normal, right? So it's really hard to blame someone for doing something that's now seen as normal. But if you talk to them and they keep going back to it, that's a whole different story. The stock market can be very dangerous if you start trading and trying to time the market. It can quickly become high risk gambling when you get involved in options or leverage. Said that perfectly. I completely agree. It's all about your timelines. If you're going to buy and hold an asset for a really long time, you're probably not gambling. But if you're looking to make quick money and you're taking on that same mindset as you do at a blackjack table or a roulette wheel, you're getting towards that gambling aspect, right? What is your feeling on backing a gambler when they call it a loan? And your name is backing a gambler is not a loan. Okay. I think I might need more context because I'm not sure I understand the question. When it comes to groups like Gamblers Anonymous, they say that you should never give a problem gambler money because it's going to bail them out. It's going to keep going and enabling them. Um, it's not really a loan more as it is a bailout. What are my thoughts on advantage play blackjack and slots? They seem to make a lot of money. Let's separate them. Advantage play blackjack, you mean card counting. That's something that you could theoretically make money with. I don't even consider it gambling, but if you're doing it, you're getting kicked out of the casino. So anyone telling you they're making a lot of money really isn't. Advantage play slots is a load of shit. So I separate them as the two. Slot machines are really just independent spins going over and over again. Thinking that you can come up with some kind of strategy to beat them is absurd. Something that problem gamblers might tell themselves, though. 50.2% of people that play on slot machines have a gambling addiction. How long did it take you to get out of debt after you quit gambling? How important was it for your recovery? So I got out of debt after I quit gambling by working 70 hours a week for 6 months following the last day that I gambled. How important was it? I think that it was a mistake. It was important to get out of debt, and it was important to work my way out of debt. Don't get me wrong. But when I think back, I was trying to do it all at once, just like I did when I was gambling, and I figured that when it was done, it was done. I would never think about it again. The value in doing it was to learn the lesson, but I did it so fast that it became painful and it held me back from my happiness. By my happiness, I mean I focused so much on paying off the debt that for 6 months I was living like a shell of the life that I could have lived. Which, if I could go back, what I would have done was come up with a more formal plan on repaying the debts and working every single day, but not overworking myself. Just knowing how long it would take, having clarity ahead of time would have made a big impact. Guys, before I move on to the next question, please do me a favor and drop a like on this video if you're enjoying what we're talking about today. It'll help more people to find this channel. After this video is published, it could be a week from now, a month from now. But we're trying to help more people get here to avoid making the same mistakes that I did. And I hope that you follow along the journey and join this community. Setting healthy boundaries in recovery can combat gambling triggers. Absolutely, Sean. I think that it's trial and error, right? Like I can tell you what worked for me, what works for you might be completely different. But I had my family managing my bank account. I was taking like really, really extreme measures to make sure that I wasn't going back to gambling. I was self-excluding. I was ripping up my debit cards, right? I was doing all the classic stuff. So it's trial and error to see if you're honest with yourself, what is making it easier and what's making it more difficult to stay away. And then doing the things that are making it easier over and over again. Mm, Do did you watch Squid Game, and what's your opinion on how it portrayed gambling addiction? M, you have now just made me take out my notes. I'm gonna write this down. Squid Game video. Because with Squid Game 2 coming out, I think it's a great opportunity to make a video answering this exact question. Now, off the top of my mind, I remember watching it and I remember thinking like, "Oh man, this guy's addicted to gambling." He was at a horse racing track, I remember, and the people were after him that he owed money to, and that's when the guy that recruited him to be in the game stepped in. How do I think it portrayed gambling addiction? I think it portrayed it as like a side problem. Like everyone that was there had a different reason that they were there in the game. It was one of the reasons that people ended up in a bad financial situation. But what I think it did well was show that he kept going back thinking that gambling was going to solve all of his problems. And then it led him to some really desperate measures. I'd like some more time to kind of build on that because I think this is a great avenue to make a video on. But for the time being, I think that that's where I'll leave it. Let's see. It looks like a couple of people are probably coming from the same friend group here. Wait, so you don't believe you can make money gambling at all? That is correct. In the end, you're always going to lose money gambling because every single game contains a house edge. Over the long run, the odds will trend against you. You will lose your money. You will now say, but I used this strategy or that strategy or this sports betting pick works or that works or this works. It doesn't. You haven't been doing it long enough, and eventually it will catch up to you and you will begin to lose your money. I don't need to fight with you now. You can pretend that you're right. You can go on being happy. But if you do want to ever come back, this page will always be open for you and I'll be here to talk to you. Gambling is not profitable. It is only a way to lose money. And if you truly believe the others that it is a way to make money, you're heading down a very dark and dangerous path that I was on for a really long time. Do I think slot machine, casino players, and sports gamblers have a different mindset or it converges at some levels? This is a great question because I'm posting a video pretty soon called How Sports Betting Became the New Slot Machine. So I think traditionally they have had a different mindset. There's the action gambler, and there are the gamblers that are doing it for the escape. And in those cases, that's kind of how people have divided out sports betting versus casino games, right? Particularly slot machines. Let's use sports betting and slot machines. The action gambler is the sports bettor, and they want to find the odds that'll help them win, improve that they can win, get rich, move forward, these kinds of things. Whereas the escape gambler wants to escape a negative reality. They want to dissociate for a bit and get into a machine zone. I think that with the way that sports betting is turned now with live betting, we're finding that it's a lot closer to being like a slot machine than it is traditional sports betting. Think about it. Will the next pitch be a strike? No matter what kind of data you've researched, no matter what kind of analytical system you have, that next pitch being a strike is like flipping a coin. And so it's very similar to just hitting a button on a slot machine and seeing what the result will be. The casino industry has a direct incentive to push that Because it's really, really, really random. And with each bet containing a house edge, randomness plays into their favor. So we're seeing a shift from traditional sports betting, which was, I still think, not skill based, but you could even argue that it was closer to being skill based, to now slot machine randomness within sports. Do they have the same mindset? I think it's converging more than ever before. So I'm a sports betting addict, specifically NBA. I want to bet on small odds, something like that. Is it not profitable in the long run? No, it's not profitable in the long run. If it was profitable, it wouldn't be offered on the sports book. And people can fight me on it all day. It's not my main mission here. They usually just come back in a couple of weeks. Mm, Professional video poker player. You mean professional video poker streamer, maybe? I'm not familiar with that person. My guess is that they are streaming and making ad revenue on their play because that's the main way you can make money gambling. Where do I put video poker players on my list of gamblers? Gamblers? I don't know. It kind of goes back to a question earlier: is one type of gambling worse than another? I don't think so necessarily. I think it's about where you spend the majority of your time. So it is what it is. But guys, do me a favor if you're here, drop any kind of questions that you want in the chats. I see we're kind of getting overrun with people asking questions, trying to poke fun at someone with a gambling addiction in order to win an argument that no one's having with them. But it is what it is. How much do they make on ad revenue? I can give you a basic breakdown of YouTube ad revenue. If you take 1,000 views on a page that's an average YouTube page, so let's just say, yeah, like they'll make on average $5 or $6 per 1,000 views. Now, if they're posting every day, let's take a slot streamer for instance. They're posting every day and their videos are averaging 50,000 views in the first 24 hours. Now, all of a sudden, they're making 50 times 5, which is 200 and yeah, $250 on a video every day. And then they're getting paid the sponsorship money from being sponsored by the casino, and then they're getting paid affiliate money from you going and gambling on their code. They're probably making over $1,000 every time they post a video. Now, that doesn't compare to these $100,000 spins that they're doing, but realistically, that's the casino's money. So, Mm. Wow, I love how upset people can get. Oh, guys, I really appreciate you. Like the three of you. It's just not really helping anyone on the channel. And so you can blame me. You can say I ran away. You can go and tell your friends that you guys won. But I'm just here to help people that are going through it. Let's see. 45 days bet free, but I relapsed and it's more devastating after I relapse. Why can't I remove this in my mind, this gambling addiction? Josh, just be patient with yourself. A lot of times we come up with arbitrary numbers in our head, right? Like, oh, every 50th day, like I want to go back to gambling. And it's because it happened in the past. What all you need to do is set up a system ahead of time and take things a day at a time. So what I did was I found alternative things to do with my time. I limited my access to money that would tempt me to gamble. I self excluded from the casinos and I went to support group meetings for my gambling problem. When I had these things in place, when I would have urges to gamble, I couldn't really act on them right away, right? So, say it's day 48, you're feeling an urge to gamble and you go and you log in, but oh, you can't log in. It says that I'm banned from this account. Okay, well, I'll go to another one. Oh, I'm banned from this one. Fine. Like I'll make a withdrawal and I'll go in person. Oh, well, I don't have access to that money, so I can't go and gamble it today. Now, all of a sudden, you've added layers of friction in between your thought to place a bet and actually going and making that bet. That's what it's about. It's about taking it a day at a time, being prepared for when you feel temptations to gamble, and then moving forward. So don't kick yourself about anything. No, and thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if this serves as kind of a pseudo meeting for you, I understand that. I wouldn't say that it replaces it though. You know, there's value in that in-person connection or even online connection that I can't give you in just a chat situation, but it's certainly better, I hope, than doing nothing at all. And so I hope this is a valuable part of your journey. How do I get more likes? I cry when I don't get a 100. If you think you can win money gambling on a daily basis, you're an addict on some level. Either that or you're trying to sell someone some kind of solution like the three bozos we saw here a couple of minutes ago. And so that's just typically what we run into, right? When you say something that goes against someone else's business model or their livelihood, obviously they're going to get defensive and attack you. And that is what it is. I don't think that everyone that thinks that they're going to win on a daily basis is addicted to gambling, but they're certainly playing with fire because that's what I did for many, many years and it didn't treat me well. So if you guys are here, please do me a favor and hit that like button on the video. I hope that you've been enjoying the conversation so far. I know we got a little bit sidetracked when I started engaging with some of the goofier comments. That's a little bit of rust on me. I haven't been live in a little bit. I should be used to it by now. I've been going live for 2 years. I should be ready to handle that when it comes in. But feel free to drop any questions that you might have. I don't know who Chrissy is, my friend, but hope she's doing good. Hope everyone's having a good day. If you are trying to stop gambling, I hope that you're having a happy and gamble-free day. But feel free to drop any questions that you might have about gambling, gambling addiction, and addiction recovery. Here to chat with you guys. More interviews, absolutely. We're going to be posting one tomorrow. Mondays and Thursdays is our schedule. So I have a podcast recorded to fill every Monday and Thursday until the middle of February already. So if you want to have an interview, if you want to have a conversation, I would love to have you join. It won't get posted until the end of February, but um, would still, I mean, we're going to get there, right? Time's going to go by either way. Would still love to have you guys come on and share your stories if you're interested. And if you do want to do that, of course, just reach out to me at rob@odatrecovery.com. Mm. So there's lots of different conversations that we could have. And one thing that I struggle with is like, how do I balance making entertaining content with content that'll help people? I've thought about conversations of talking to these delusional people that think that they're going to win money gambling and then selling a solution to other people. But how much does that help? It's like I struggle to find angles to really make it helpful while being entertaining. I feel like it would just be like watching a fight and it wouldn't be that productive. All right, here we go. My mom and I live together and are both problem gamblers with slot machines. We live 10 minutes away from a casino. I self excluded, she didn't. We enable each other. How do I handle that situation? Heather, does your mom also want to stop gambling? If not, there's only so much that you can do, and it comes down to protecting yourself. If you're both wanting to stop gambling, it becomes a much different story. It becomes about following through on that self exclusion, downloading something like Gamban to block gambling apps and websites on your devices so that you're not tempted to start online gambling. If she's not ready, you can't change her, unfortunately. What you can do is you can begin to introduce the idea that, hey, if we keep doing this, XYZ things might happen. We might go bankrupt. We might lose the rest of our family. We might lose our jobs. We might be depressed. We might go into debt. These are conversations you can have, but if she's not ready, there's only so much you can do. And it comes down to protecting yourself. I don't know what the financial situation is if you're able to kind of insulate your finances, but it is not a great situation to be in. It's almost distance might be required to a certain extent if possible, and if not possible, it comes down to asking your mom to choose between you and the gambling. A lot of stories of people who are in recovery, they are that they got into recovery not by their own choice, but out of kind of an ultimatum. It's that their wife asked them, "Do you want gambling or do you want this marriage? Do you want to see your kids or do you want to keep gambling?" These kinds of ultimatums have changed people's lives for the better, but certainly in the moment, they're not pleasant. Um, I hope that something that I said there can be helpful, but it's not. It's not as simple as just a one answer solution, unfortunately. If you say that you have to gamble to make money, what I would ask is, what has happened every time that you've won money gambling? Do you retire and you're happy, or do you want to win again and try again? We have this idea that gambling is our only way out of a poor financial situation. Yet we end up in horrible, horrible situations because of gambling. It's tough. I don't know quite what to tell you here other than you're not going to make money gambling. If you believe that, come back when you don't. I'm here to help. There are actual people who make money selling solution to other people. What are you talking about? They make quite a lot of money. They do make a lot of money, but they're not selling a real solution. They're snake oil salesmen. So I get that it might be something that hurts your feelings if you've gone out and bought some of these services, but anyone that's telling you how to make money online gambling is lying to you. They're just great marketers. They're selling you a solution that doesn't actually exist, and you're buying it hoping with desperate belief that it'll be true. It won't. If you buy any kind of solution online to try to make money gambling, you're just adding to your losses. Losing your paycheck does suck. There were many times where I was gambling away money before I even got my paycheck, and then I'd feel like I was working for free just to try to make it all back. It was a miserable way to live. I don't wish it on anyone. Why don't I jump on slot live streams and spam negative comments? Well, Roberto, a couple of different reasons. The first is there shouldn't be any live streams anymore on YouTube. So if I was jumping on slot live streams and spamming negative comments, it'd be on something like Kick, which I don't have an account because Kick's owned by Stake. Second, I don't feel like it's that productive. I don't feel like it accomplishes anything at all. The only thing that I think could be positive is to spam resources for places that people could get help if they were struggling with a gambling problem, and then the mods of that chat would just block you because that goes against their profitability. It's just kind of a waste of time, in fairness. Every time you won money gambling, you spend it on a stupid thing or more gambling. Exactly. We tell ourselves, oh, we'll spend it so that we don't lose it. And then we go and spend it. And then we feel like we have to go and win more. So we go back to gambling and then we end up in debt and we sell that thing that we bought that was stupid anyway to keep gambling more. It's an endless cycle. Right? It's just trash. Been following you for a year or so and I can't quit gambling. I make good money and I know gambling is not a way to make money, but it feels good to win. Seth, if you're not ready to stop gambling, you're not ready to stop gambling. I can't be the one that convinces you to do it, or else you're doing it for me and not for you. I think that one thing I would advise is the next time that you lose money gambling, actually think about it. Think, how did it make you feel? Was it worth it? Do I want to feel this way again? Sharing my story can only accomplish so much. You have to experience some type of negative and you have to really internalize that feeling or nothing will change. Because I can tell you what might happen, but if you're winning money, you're not going to believe me. It's only during those low points when reality catches up that you have a chance of making a change. And so the next time that happens, give it a thought. Do I want to keep feeling like this? How do you know when you're ready to stop gambling? When the pain of gambling outweighs the pleasure, excuse me. Yeah, when the pain of gambling outweighs the pleasure. When I first started gambling, there was no pain, right? I bet money, I felt excited, I won or lost, and then I continued my day. At the end, when I'd win, I wouldn't feel anything. When I'd lose, I'd feel this intense urge to go and get it back. And there was no thrill, there was no enjoyment. It was just a job and a losing job. So when do you know when you're ready to stop gambling? When you've completely lost touch with why you started. How did you find the value of money again? Like, it's okay to buy new clothes. To me, it's weird knowing the bank balance will go down. Never. All right, yeah. So, how do you redevelop a appreciation for money? It happens slowly. As you begin to work for money and you're paying down debts, you're just realizing how much slower it's coming in, and so you develop an appreciation for it that you didn't have when it was moving rapidly. It's kind of a natural byproduct of just staying clean, earning, and paying off your debts. There's no real trick to it at all. It does get better as time goes on, but I'm still rebuilding that myself, of course. Mm. Casinos encourage gambling addiction by card tier status and purse 100%. And we're seeing a shift where before casino VIPs used to be like the high rollers living in the suites. And now casino VIPs are people that just spend too much on online gambling. They give them free plays and tier status and all these perks. It's a trap. It's just a bait on a fishing hook reeling you in. That's all it is. Seth, of course, man. Thanks for being here. Roberto, I get the sentiment, and I think that the idea of putting out counter content to these streamers is really important. I just think that the method that I feel is most helpful is to put out content of my own. You just present yourself in a really different light when you are trolling than you do when you're making impactful content. I think I'm an instigator, but I don't think I'm a troll, if that's fair. All right. So, guys, we're going to be calling it a day. I want to thank you again for being here. Thank you for leaving likes on the video, for subscribing to the YouTube channel, for following on Facebook, for just leaving comments and engaging. We've seen good comments, we've seen bad comments, but at the end of the day, it's all about starting the conversation. If you or a loved one is struggling with a gambling problem, just know that you're not alone. A lot of people out there are going to try to sell you a solution. It's snake oil salesman, no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone said in this chat today. Don't believe the lies online. And if you're struggling, help is out there. Check out the resources page if you need it, and let's keep getting better together, one day at a time. Thank you so much.